Elliot James didn't move to Hawthorne Ridge to make friends. He moved there to breathe. After 2 decades designing illumination systems for stadiums and museums, he was tired of deadlines and blinding fluorescent glare. At 48, all he wanted was a quiet house on a quiet street, where he could control the atmosphere down to the last bulb. The place he picked was nothing flashy, a slightly outdated split level with a wide porch and maple trees that flared red each October. But it had bones. Symmetry. Potential. Elliot spent his first month refinishing hardwood floors, replacing the old gas stove, and installing motion sensor amber lights under the eaves. The porch light mattered. It was part of the aesthetic. Soft, warm, and unobtrusive. Just enough glow to guide the steps at night without disturbing the peace. But peace, it turned out, was a luxury his new neighbor couldn't afford him. On a Tuesday night, Elliot heard a muffled thud outside. He assumed it was a raccoon or maybe a branch falling until he opened the door and stepped into broken glass. The sconce lay shattered, amber dome in pieces across the welcome mat. Confused, he checked the yard. Still, calm, empty. Then he looked across the street. A window curtain fluttered slightly before snapping shut. The footage from his camera showed a heavy-set woman in a pastel sweatsuit tossing a brick underhand at the light. No mask, no hurry, just certainty. The next day, she knocked. Didn't introduce herself, just announced, "That light shines into my bedroom." Elliot, stunned, said, "I measured it. It doesn't project more than 30 feet. It's angled down. I have migraines." She barked. "Melatonin issues. You may not care, but it's wrecking my sleep." He didn't argue, just closed the door. He knew the type. Not looking for compromise, just control. 2 days later, he got an unsigned letter on faux official HOA letterhead, citing a violation of lighting ordinances. But the parcel number was wrong. The zoning code listed hadn't been used in years. Someone had dug deep. Too deep. That's when he realized this wasn't about brightness. This was a siege. The woman across the street, who he later learned was named Marlene Shaw, had a history of pushing boundaries. She wasn't on the HOA board officially, but she'd managed to slip through amendments over the years, small ones buried in dense language that let any resident challenge exterior lighting based on personal discomfort. In other words, she'd written herself a weapon. When Elliot replaced his broken fixture with a shatterproof one and redirected it slightly downward, Marlene escalated. Garbage pickups mysteriously skipped his house. Landscaping crews stopped showing up. Packages arrived tampered with. Powdered sugar was smeared across his car windshield. His back gate latch was jammed with a metal shim. He said nothing, but he upgraded. Cameras with infrared. A second hard drive for backups. White floodlights. Mounted low and legal. Triggered by motion. Angled to graze the edges of his own property, but just enough to illuminate her second-floor curtains. That's when the real war began. She responded through proxies. Flyers were left in every mailbox, but his neighbors stopped waving. A neighbor parked inches from his driveway, forcing awkward exits. Then came the spray paint, red and black loops across his fence. No word, just chaos. Elliot didn't retaliate. He fortified. Motion sensors embedded in the lawn. Heat signature alerts. Surge protection for every junction box. His yard became a grid, not militarized, but controlled. Marlene filed complaints through the county now. Not local. Bigger fish. She claimed his lights violated regional codes. She called a town hall meeting to discuss surveillance and privacy concerns, carefully worded, never naming him directly, but showing blurred photos of his yard on the projector. He didn't attend, but he watched the recording. What he saw confirmed everything. Marlene wasn't enforcing rules, she was shaping perception. So Elliot shifted tactics. He turned his home into a model property. Trimmed hedges. Calibrated sprinklers. Greeted neighbors. Not warmly but visibly. Not defensive, just stable. The contrast worked. Her next complaint about environmental disharmony fell flat. A resident named Greg, who had once questioned her during a board meeting, reached out. He'd been targeted too. Together, They compiled every document, every letter, every amendment she had touched when she filed for a property reevaluation, attempting to brand Elliot's house as a nuisance dwelling. He didn't flinch. He filed their dossier with the Regional Oversight Board. Not as a complaint, just a record. Marlene didn't get the reaction she expected, and that rattled her. The final blow came during an unannounced compliance sweep. Inspectors documented her own halogen floods unregistered. Blinding. And clearly in violation. Her weapon had turned. 2 days later, she sat on her porch, white paper in hand, visibly trembling. She didn't speak to him, didn't look. But the message was clear. She had lost control of the narrative. Elliot never gloated. He just maintained. Painted the trim. Fixed the deck. Replaced the porch light one final time with a sleek brushed steel fixture someone had anonymously left on his steps. He never learned who gave it to him. It didn't matter. It wasn't an apology. It was acknowledgement. The light came on at dusk that night. Subtle. Warm. Perfectly within code. And for the first time in a year, the air on his street didn't feel sharp. It just felt like home. Marlene's windows stayed shut. Her lawn overgrew. No one asked about her. She wasn't gone, but she was done. Elliot didn't win with noise. He won by refusing to move. He turned persistence into power and silence into resistance. And that porch light, it didn't shine to provoke anymore. It shone to endure. And sometimes, that's louder than anything.